Revenge with Karen.
I was filling out Form 1423B in triplicate, because of course I was, when Alyssa strutted past my cubicle in 4-inch heels and an IQ half the size. She glanced at my screen, fake smiled, and purred. Still pushing paper, Linda? How? Vital. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just stapled the form and returned her smile with the warmth of an IRS audit. Learn early in defense contracting. It's the ones who don't raise their voice who hold the sharpest knives. And honey, mine were alphabetized. Let me back up. I've been with the company for 27 years. That's longer than the VP's wife has been out of braces. My job, procurement compliance officer. Boring, to the untrained eye, sure. But in this world, where one misfiled spec sheet can cost us our government funding, it's not the loud mouths that keep the lights on. It's the paper pushers, the protocol trolls, the ones who know that Clause 7.3 isn't just legalese, it's landmines wrapped in Times New Roman. I didn't wear flashy blazers. I didn't do team-building exercises or post inspirational quotes in Slack. My inbox was clean, my records, audit-proof, and my tea drawer was better stocked than the VP's liquor cabinet. People didn't remember my birthday. Remembered I once saved the company $12 million by flagging a duplicate line item on a vendor invoice buried in a spreadsheet 6 tabs deep. Nobody brought balloons, but the CFO called me indispensable for the first and last time. I laminated the post-it. And if you're into stories like these, where the quiet ones finally flip the switch and the peacocks in heels start begging for breadcrumbs, go ahead and hit that follow button and like the story. It helps the team keep these stories coming, and trust me, this one's just heating up. Back to Alyssa. She came bundled with the VP's son, fresh from an accelerated management program and apparently allergic to humility. You ever meet someone whose entire personality is built on LinkedIn buzzwords and $90 blowouts? That's Alyssa. She got parachuted into the procurement division like Nepotism in a pantsuit, and I was her assigned legacy staff liaison. Translation, she pretended to lead, and I quietly prevented her from setting federal regulations on fire. Her first week, she tried to rename a classified parts requisition file because the vibe was too sterile. Another time, she submitted a vendor approval form with a smiley face in the signature box. I kid you not, an actual emoji. I flagged it, obviously. She laughed, said, "Ugh, you're so rigid, Linda. No wonder you've been stuck in that chair since Y2K." Now I could have clapped back. I could have told her that chairs supported more federal clearances than her husband's entire lineage. But I didn't. I did what I always do, documented, corrected, and quietly made sure nobody went to jail over Alyssa's PowerPoint fumbles. That's what they never get. The flashy types think control is shouting in meetings and owning the room. But real control is in the margins, in the footnotes, the email chains that people don't bother reading until it's too late. Control is knowing where the stop work clause lives and which trigger unlocks it. I didn't need a title to hold power. I had protocol. Over the years, I learned that keeping quiet made me invisible, and being invisible made me dangerous. I knew where the contracts were buried, knew who approved what, and more importantly, I knew exactly which signatures were missing when the feds came knocking. Younger crowd called me Office Gandalf behind my back. I didn't mind. Gandalf lived. Saruman didn't. Alyssa, of course, thought she was the protagonist, the disruptor. She brought in ring lights for Zoom calls and color-coded spreadsheets with motivational fonts. At one point, she tried renaming our compliance tracking system ProcurePal, said it felt friendlier. I told her it sounded like a dating app for forklifts. She didn't laugh. She never did. Simmered for a while. She'd make her digs, I'd file them mentally and digitally. I'd catch her cutting corners, she'd gaslight me in Slack. Once, she scheduled a meeting labeled cross-functional synergy alignment just to ask if I could be less intense on documentation, because it was killing morale. I stared at her through the Zoom grid and said, "Morale doesn't void a federal contract clause, Alyssa." That didn't go over well. Then came the quarterly review. Her big moment. Stood in front of the team, waving pie charts like gospel, and ended her slide deck with a quote from herself. "Innovation begins when the old rules are broken." Everyone clapped, except me. I wasn't being rude. I was busy flagging a $3.2M unauthorized vendor bundle she'd greenlit without dual sign-off. She smirked as she walked past my desk that afternoon. "Don't worry, Linda. You'll get there someday, if you embrace change." Funny, I already had. The meeting was already dragging like a three-legged dog through wet cement when Alyssa unmuted herself and dropped the grenade. We were halfway through the all hands, procurement updates, status check-ins, a few awkward jokes from Dave and logistics about inflation being the real hostile takeover, when Alyssa leaned forward in her little home office throne, eyes glinting like a raccoon about to ransack a trash can. "Linda," she chirped, voice all sunshine and snipe, "since you've been so vocal in your emails about our vendor process, why don't you explain to the whole team why your concerns are delaying Project Shieldbeam?" I didn't look up right away. Just finished my note, Alyssa initiating public flogging, timestamp 10:43, and took a slow sip of my lukewarm green tea. Then I looked dead into the camera, as 47 little rectangles stared back, was frozen in that combination of dread and fascination, usually reserved for reality shows, with the word uncensored in the title. I flagged vendor 2289 because their W9 had mismatched INs, and their updated insurance certificate was marked expired. We're not allowed to proceed on government-backed contracts without current documentation, Section 14B in our compliance clause. Ignoring that would violate federal procurement standards. Again, I didn't raise my voice, didn't twitch, just said it like I was reading the weather, somewhere between thunderstorm warning and bureaucratic doom. A few eyebrows on the call went up. Mike from engineering leaned back, blinking like he was just realizing insurance might actually matter. Alyssa, however, didn't blink at all. She grinned. "God, you love stopping things, don't you?" she said, laughing. "You should have been a traffic cone." There was that moment, half a second. You could hear everyone inhale but not exhale. The silence was loud. Even Dave, the logistics comedian, stopped breathing. Alyssa kept going. "Seriously, though, maybe you should stop work. You seem happier when nothing's happening." I caught my reflection in the screen. Jawline tight, shoulders straight, that flicker in my eyes, that wasn't rage. That was calculation. Like a pilot seeing the storm ahead and already adjusting altitude. But I didn't respond. Didn't quip. Didn't rise to it. "Thank you," I said simply, and clicked mute. And just like that, I went back to being the quiet woman with folders stacked like fortresses and a mug that said "World's Okayest Employee." Only now, the team didn't see paper when they looked at me. They saw the grenade pin Alyssa just yanked out. The meeting stumbled forward after that. Budget slides, delivery schedules, quick HR reminder about professional respect during remote calls that everyone pretended wasn't aimed at anyone in particular. But no one was really listening anymore. Not to the slides, not to the updates. They were watching the digital silence of one window in the Zoom grid, mine. They knew something had shifted. They just didn't know what. When the call ended, I didn't log off right away. I sat there a while, watching my inbox quietly reload, cursor blinking in an empty reply box like it was waiting for something. I didn't give it a reply. I gave it one sentence. But that comes later. First came the fallout, the kind that begins not with fire, but with silence. The kind where someone thinks they're standing on marble, not realizing it's ice. And I had the lighter. The moment the Zoom call ended, I sat in the stillness of my kitchen, fluorescent light humming, my aging corgi snoring at my feet, the taste of cold green tea sitting on my tongue like metal. I didn't move right away. I just stared at the soft blue glow of my desktop, the meeting window minimized, the afterimage of Alyssa's smirk still burning in the top left corner of my mind. You know that feeling when a switch flips in your chest? Not rage, not sadness, something colder, like the click of a deadbolt. That was me. No shaking hands, no breathing exercises, just a quiet acceptance that something had crossed a line, and I wouldn't be cleaning up after it this time. I navigated to the folder I kept encrypted behind 2 layers of login and 1 biometric gate, my compliance archive. Not the sanitized version for the junior staff. The real one. The version where I cataloged every single instance of Alyssa's unapproved sign-offs, policy circumventions, vendor approvals done with about as much rigor as a toddler, finger painting with pudding. I had receipts, pages of them. She thought forwarding one email chain to legal made it vanish from history. I had the entire inbox download sitting quietly in my archive since last August. I had the PDF of her smiling face next to a greenlit contract from a vendor, flagged for expired insurance and an active DUNS number. She was a walking GSA violation in lip gloss. But I wasn't going to lecture. I wasn't going to start a Slack war. I sure as hell wasn't going to explain compliance to a woman who once tried to delete a locked spreadsheet because it was ugly. No. I opened my secure client for interagency correspondence, One most people in our office didn't even know existed. It had its own login, a separate server, logged everything with the accuracy of a courtroom stenographer. This wasn't internal. This was federal. 2. Contracting Officer RK at FedServices.gov subject. Noncompliance trigger immediate review advised body. Per Clause 5.7 of the procurement agreement, repeated override of required documentation without corrective action has occurred and remains unaddressed. That was it. No fluff. No signature flourish. Not even a hi there. Just one clean sentence. Truth, a trigger, I hit send. Then I closed the client, logged out, and opened my pantry to restock my tea drawer. There was no announcement, no push notification to Slack. No can I speak to your manager email storm. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a lever, and it had just been pulled. I knew what would happen next. It wouldn't be instant, not like in the movies. These systems moved like glaciers, quiet, heavy, and absolutely unstoppable once set in motion. They would move. The federal contract officer would receive the memo. A compliance escalation would trigger. Financial systems tied to flagged contract streams would get pinged. An automatic hold placed on anything involving vendors under review. Accounts would freeze, and nobody would know why, not yet, because the only person who could explain it was me, and I wasn't in the mood to explain a damn thing. Instead, I brewed a fresh cup of green tea. Opened a crossword puzzle. Let the wheels grind. Outside, the world kept spinning. Alyssa was probably texting someone about manifesting solutions or whatever oxygen-deprived phrase she used to mask her incompetence. The VP was likely elbows deep in a steak dinner, oblivious that his daughter-in-law had just triggered the compliance equivalent of a controlled detonation. But me, I'd done my part. One sentence, one match. Now we wait for the smoke. It started with a ping. Somewhere in the server racks beneath finance, a compliance crawler hit a match. Vendor 2289, active status flagged with expired insurance. Then another hit, vendor 2431, invoice approved without secondary signature. And another, vendor 1987, whose entire contract stream had been stamped approved using Alyssa's personal email alias. The system wasn't angry. It wasn't even aware. It just did what it was programmed to do, elevated the flags, reported to the audit queue, and copied the Federal Contracting Oversight inbox as per Clause 5.7. By 2:13 a.m., the anomaly detection protocol flipped from yellow to orange. At 3:42 a.m., the Federal Systems Gateway initiated an auto-hold across 3 account streams tied to Shieldbeam, Halberd, and the lesser-known but heavily budgeted Lancer initiative. And by 6:11 a.m., the first email hit finance like a boot through a window. Stop work notice initiated pending compliance review. 1,000 red lines spiderwebbed across the dashboard. Vendor payments held. Contractor credentials suspended. Access cards denied. Payroll batches auto-segmented and placed in escrow. At 6:44 a.m., Cheryl in finance tried to override the freeze. System spit back a federal lockout code and a helpful suggestion to contact your contracting officer. She blinked at the screen, muttered something about Linda's protocols, and reached for her desk phone. But Linda's phone rang once and dumped straight to voicemail. By 7:03 a.m., 2 project leads, Reed from Shieldbeam and Carla from Halberd, were standing in front of my office door, coffee cups trembling like they'd been summoned to the principal's office. My door was locked, my lights were off, but I was inside. They knocked, tentative at first, then louder. I didn't answer. Linda, Carla's voice was higher than usual and carrying that note people get when they're halfway between concern and terror. Hey, we think maybe there's a system error? I didn't look up. I was scrolling through a spreadsheet. Vendor timelines, approved disbursements, timestamped note beside Alyssa's name with the words no corrective action filed 6 instances. Reed cleared his throat. Linda, seriously, just did you do this, do this, do this? I didn't make the rules, I didn't write the clauses, I didn't build the protocols, I just followed them. Religiously. The same way I followed instructions when assembling a pressure cooker. You don't skip a step unless you want shrapnel embedded in your drywall. Heard them whisper to each other outside the door. Did she really file a stop work? Would she? She could. That last one hung in the air like cigarette smoke in a car with the windows rolled up. I finally stood, walked to the office mini-kitchen, and brewed a cup of tea. No rush, no performance. Just me and the hiss of the electric kettle. I sipped it, eyes still on my screen. My calendar was wide open for the day. Not a single meeting. Outside, Carla's phone buzzed. Finance just locked down Halberd's whole back end. Like, hard shutdown. Same for Shield Beam. Reed's voice was tight. CFO's about to lose it. Still, I said nothing. They knocked again, softer this time. Like maybe they weren't looking for answers anymore, maybe just forgiveness. But I wasn't offering that either. I sat back down and updated my audit notes. At 7:26 a.m., Lisa sent out an email to the company-wide procurement channel. Does anyone know why vendor payments are failing this morning? Please advise. At 7:31 a.m., Dave from logistics replied with a meme of a dumpster fire. And by 7:44 a.m., someone in the C-suite finally said what they were all thinking. Did Linda trigger this? I didn't. The clause did. I just told the truth and let the system do what it was born to do. Now the truth was out. The system was awake. And this time, nobody was ignoring me. By 8:02 a.m., the executive floor smelled like panic sweat and printer toner. Legal had gone full triage mode, two paralegals rifling through folders, the general counsel barking acronyms like a panicked auctioneer. Find the vendor trail. I want signatures. I want timestamps. Who initialed the Shield Beam release? The answer, as it turned out, was Alyssa. Over and over and over. See, system doesn't lie. It doesn't forget. It doesn't care about your title, your husband's last name, or the inspirational quote in your email footer. What it does care about is audit integrity, and Alyssa had trampled through it like a deer in stilettos. IT got pulled in next. Poor Lewis looked like he hadn't slept in a week, eyes bloodshot, as he combed through access logs. He pulled up a timeline on the projector in the compliance war room. Alyssa MGR01, approved vendor 2289 urgent timeline. Linda said no, but I overrode. Alyssa MGR01, approved vendor 2431, pushed through for faster delivery. Paper stuff later. Alyssa MGR01, modified vendor 1987, just sign it. It's fine. Every entry was signed with her digital signature. Every override manually entered. And in every case, she'd clicked through the bright red "Are you sure?" This action violates protocol warning like it was a pop-up ad for antivirus software. By 8:17 a.m., legal stopped talking. By 8:19 a.m., the VP started shouting. Where is she? Where's Linda? Someone from HR timidly suggested, she's probably in her office, so off they went. Alyssa, the VP, one poor intern carrying a laptop like a human shield, straight to my door. They knocked. I didn't answer. Inside, I was typing a quick follow-up note to the contracting officer. Nothing dramatic. Just an update on pending documentation gaps and a polite note about audit flag thresholds being exceeded in 3 categories. It read like a tax return. Cold, precise, undeniable. Outside the door, Alyssa's voice cracked through the silence. Linda, please open up. We need to talk about this misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Is that what we were calling it now? I sipped my tea. Chamomile this time. Good for digestion. And karma. Alyssa knocked again, this time with a brittle cheer. Hey, it's Alyssa. So, looks like the system might have overreacted, huh? Probably just needs a little calibration, right? The door didn't open. Inside, I pulled up the procurement logs, highlighted every instance of override without review, attached them to a single file, labeled it Exhibit A Uncorrected Violations. HR pinged me on Slack. Hi, Linda. You have a moment? Leadership would really appreciate a quick sync. No punctuation after that hi, Linda. Always a bad sign. At 8:34 a.m., legal found the clause. The clause nobody had read in years. The one buried 5 layers deep in the original procurement charter, last amended in 2011. If patterns of noncompliance are observed without documented correction, any designated compliance officer may trigger a temporary federal hold. Pending review, that designated compliance officer, me. Tell me that's not her signature, the VP whispered, staring at the digital record on legal's screen. It's her login, her access badge, her digital signature. All approved, and we can't undo it. No, said the general counsel flatly. Not without federal clearance, and not without her. The room fell silent. Except, of course, for my kettle whistling softly inside my locked office. I sat like a librarian watching a frat party burn next door. They knocked one more time, harder, now tinged with desperation. I turned off Slack, logged out of Outlook, and sipped. At 9:07 a.m., the VP's emergency meeting began with the kind of brittle optimism you only hear when someone's trying to convince themselves the ship isn't sinking while already ankle-deep in bilge water. All right, let's stay calm, he said, adjusting his golf pattern tie like it was a stress toy. This is a system hiccup. We just need to get Linda to reverse whatever procedure she accidentally tripped. Alyssa sat to his left, pale and fidgeting, eyes darting from face to face like a raccoon in a dog park. Her usually smug smirk was gone, replaced with the expression of someone who just realized the brakes weren't working and they were already halfway down the hill. Across from her, Legal was pulling no punches. She didn't trip anything, the general counsel said, voice low and hard. She executed a federal clause. He slapped a printout on the table, clause 5.7, highlighted in yellow like a caution sign. In the event of repeated, uncorrected procurement violations, the designated compliance officer may initiate a stop work notification, triggering a full federal hold until oversight confirms correction or reassignment. Alyssa leaned forward, lips dry. But it's just procurement. It's paperwork. She's not allowed to actually stop anything, is she? Wrong, came a voice from the corner. It was Carla from Halberd. She looked like she hadn't blinked in 10 minutes. Clause 5.7 isn't ceremonial, it's a trigger. It's connected directly to the FedSync compliance portal. Once she pulled that lever, we were done. Stop work, the VP repeated, the words sticking in his throat like molasses. Saying this is a literal stop work order. Filed, processed, active, legal, confirmed. Until cleared, we can't touch a cent from those streams. Contractors are frozen out. Credentials are suspended. Every project under that clause is in lockdown. Silence detonated across the boardroom. The kind that makes you reevaluate your life choices. The kind that reminds you Linda doesn't yell, doesn't flinch, doesn't warn. Tell me she didn't file it, someone whispered. Maybe the CFO, maybe HR. It didn't matter. The plea hung in the air, unanswered. At that exact moment, Cheryl from Finance burst through the door holding a tablet like it was radioactive. We just got a second confirmation from FedSync, she said, breathless. Audit status escalated, disbursement, frozen, flag severity, red. The VP rubbed his temples. How bad is red? Red, Cheryl said, means federal review and reporting. External, immediate. Alyssa looked like she might be sick. Legal flipped through the binder again, turning to another clause buried even deeper in the appendix. This one, he said, tapping the page with one long finger. It grants the compliance officer protection from retaliation under federal whistleblower status if the clause is used appropriately. What does appropriately mean? Alyssa asked, voice brittle. It means, legal said coldly, when it's backed by evidence. And her audit trail is bulletproof. Nobody said a word, not even the VP. And while panic mushroomed in the boardroom like a slow-motion explosion, down the hallway outside my locked office, whispers floated like ghosts through the carpeted quiet. Do you think she's in there? Of course she is. Why isn't she talking? She doesn't have to talk. God, tell me she didn't file it. No one knocked this time. No one dared. Inside, I was reading a weather report. It looked like rain tomorrow. Good. I liked the sound on my skylight. I refreshed my inbox. FedSync, stop work status confirmed. I marked it read. Then I closed the laptop, leaned back and exhaled. Not smug at all, just still, like the eye of the storm. By 10:12 a.m., the chaos had burst through the containment lines. The first contractor was turned away at the north gate of the shield beam testing site. The guard checked his tablet, scanned the badge twice, then muttered, sorry, as your access is invalid. You'll need to call your point of contact. But I'm cleared for the month, the contractor protested, holding up his hard hat like it was a hall pass. We're scheduled to install the shielding array today. The guard just shrugged. Not anymore, you're not. At 10:21 a.m., Halberd's site reported a similar incident. 15 subcontractors locked outside the fencing, half of them pacing and cursing, the other half on hold with someone, anyone, could tell them what the hell was happening. But nobody was answering, because nobody had answers. Inside HQ, the CFO was on his 5th Red Bull and 12th curse word. I want those accounts unfrozen now. Call whoever you have to call. I don't care if it's God or the ghost of Ronald Reagan. Fix this. His assistant handed him the latest update from FedSync. He read 2 lines, paled, and dropped it like it bit him. This can't be happening, he muttered, turning to the VP. You told me the procurement team was under control. The VP looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 hours. His phone was vibrating like a taser on the conference table, text after text, call after call. Contractors, department heads, and worst of all, clients, government clients. The kind that don't yell. The kind that just stop answering your emails and move the budget somewhere else. He finally picked up a call. Hi, yes, we're aware of the issue. No, it's not permanent. We're just evaluating internal compliance systems. No, we have it under control. Yes, Alyssa is resolving it. He hung up and turned to Alyssa. You are resolving it, right? Alyssa blinked at him like he just asked her to land a plane. I mean, it's a technical issue, right? Some sort of system loop. I can talk to IT again. Maybe the security badge thing is just a sync error. It's not a sync error. Snapped legal, walking in like the ghost of bad decisions. It's a federal lockout. The clause was filed and confirmed. Your approvals triggered it, all of them. Your initials are on every override, Alyssa. But she looked around the room, eyes wild. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. Linda never said anything. She never warned me. That's not how compliance works, legal said flatly. It's not a sandbox. It's not optional. She did warn you 6 times by email. Dismissed everyone. The VP banged his fist on the table. Then undo IT. Legal tossed a manila folder down with a thud. Can't. The only person with clearance to retract the notice is the officer who filed it. Linda, so tell her to retract it. The VP shouted, rising to his feet, but no one moved, because everyone knew Linda wasn't taking orders, especially not from him. Where is she now? The CFO asked, eyes twitching. Still in her office, someone whispered. She won't come out? No. And she won't talk? No. Alyssa stood, smoothing her blazer, trying to pull herself together like a half-torn shower curtain. I'll talk to her, she said. I'll fix it. Legal arched a brow. Do you even know what clause she used? Alyssa opened her mouth, then shut it. She didn't know. She had no idea. She never read the charter, never looked at the contingency plan, never bothered to understand the systems beneath the glass she stomped across in heels every day. The VP's phone rang again. He didn't answer. This time, he just watched it vibrate. At 10:45 a.m., a second memo hit the executive inbox. Subject, Notice of On-Site Oversight Review from Office of Federal Contracting and Audit Compliance. They were sending someone. In person. Alyssa looked like she might faint. The VP finally muttered, Not in charge anymore, are we? And nobody answered, because everyone already knew. By 11:16 a.m., Linda finally left her office. Not because she was summoned, not because anyone ordered her to. She just wanted another tea bag. The break room was empty when she entered, sterile, fluorescent, the hum of the vending machine louder than usual. She selected her favorite mug from the cabinet, navy blue with the faded words, I heart procurement integrity, filled the kettle. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. Just another moment in the life of someone who wasn't panicking while the building caught fire around her. She'd barely opened her tea drawer when Alyssa slithered in. Linda, oh thank God, she said, voice high and breathless like she'd run there. But her heels were too clean, her blouse too freshly tucked. The panic was real, sure, but the performance was layered on like store-bought frosting. Thick, cheap, and fake as hell. Linda didn't even look up. Just dropped a chamomile into her mug and waited for the water to boil. Alyssa stepped closer, hands fluttering like she wasn't sure whether to plead or posture. I wanted to say I'm sorry. About earlier. You know how things get on calls. Pressure. Deadlines. I didn't mean anything by it. I respect your work. I really do. Linda stirred the tea. But Alyssa continued, this whole situation has clearly spiraled. I mean, finance is in meltdown, and I think we both know that email you sent, maybe it was just heat of the moment, right? We could probably call them and walk it back. Clarify things, still no response. Alyssa laughed nervously. I mean, it's not like you wanted to shut down the entire procurement system, right? That's when Linda turned, not sharply, not with venom. Just slowly, calmly, like the second hand on a watch. She met Alyssa's eyes and said, I didn't stop work. Alyssa blinked, what? I followed protocol. The kettle clicked. Steam curled in the air like judgment. Linda poured the hot water and gave the tea a single stir. Her spoon tapped the edge of the mug, 3 soft notes like a gavel. Alyssa opened her mouth to respond, but found no words. Her hands curled at her sides, fists without strength. I just think, she tried again, quieter now, we're all on the same team, right? Maybe we could meet halfway, you know, for the company. Linda took a sip, then set the mug down, looked her dead in the eye, and said, Protocol is the halfway point. You chose not to meet it. Alyssa's lips pressed into a line so thin it might have disappeared. She turned on her heel and left, wobbling slightly as the hallway swallowed her. At 11:33 a.m., HR pinged every department head. Emergency leadership sync at 12 o'clock in Conference B. Federal Oversight Representative Ida, 12:15. By 11:40 a.m., the founder was looped in on vacation in Boca Raton, now suddenly dialing into every channel like a ghost in the wires. By 11:47 a.m., Dave from Logistics posted a Slack message that simply read, I, for one, welcome our new paper queen overlord. He was muted immediately, but the damage was done. By 11:58 a.m., the break room was empty again, save for Linda and her tea. The world outside roared with fire alarms no one could hear yet. Inside, she turned her chair slightly to face the window, watched the clouds roll in, and waited. At precisely 12:15 p.m., the federal contracting oversight officer entered the building wearing a gray suit, wireframe glasses, and the calm expression of someone who had seen institutions crumble before lunch. He didn't smile. He didn't shake hands. Walked straight into conference room B with a leather folder tucked under one arm and the authority of 5 federal statutes behind each step. The room was packed: VP, CFO, legal, HR, even a few red-eyed department heads who hadn't left the war room since sunrise. Alyssa sat near the end of the table, makeup cracking at the corners of her eyes, fingers clenched so tightly around her pen it looked like it might snap. And then there was Linda. She sat at the far end, quiet, spine straight, hands folded on the table like she was waiting for the library to open. No smugness, no posture, just stillness. The officer didn't bother with introductions. He opened his folder and began. At 6:11 a.m. today, a stop work notice was received through the Fed Sync compliance portal, citing uncorrected procurement violations tied to vendor mismanagement. This notice was filed by the designated compliance officer of record, whose authority under Clause 5.7 remains active and fully ratified. He flipped a page, projected a screen. Here are the violations. Click. Vendor 2289, expired insurance. Signed by Alyssa. Click. Vendor 2431, missing W9. Bypassed by Alyssa. Click. Vendor 1987, non-compliant procurement tier. Manual override. Smiley face emoji in the comment box. Also Alyssa. The screenshots weren't just evidence. They were autopsy photos, and Alyssa was the one holding the knife in every frame. The room was silent but for the soft metallic whir of the ceiling fan. The officer closed the folder. The notice stands. The freeze remains in place until a complete audit is completed and all discrepancies resolved. The VP cleared his throat, voice raw. And what about staff adjustments? Internal remediation? The officer looked at him like he'd asked if duct tape could plug a leak in a nuclear reactor. Responsibility begins with those who signed, he said. Appropriate reassignment is your decision. But if the compliance officer who filed this is removed, understand that you will be operating without federal shield during the audit. Translation: touch Linda and you void your last parachute. HR nodded quietly, ready drafting Alyssa's exit paperwork with the urgency of someone disarming a live grenade. Alyssa didn't speak. Her face said everything: rage, confusion, the slow motion collapse of a world she thought belonged to her. Her husband wouldn't be able to fix this. Not with flowers, not with golf invites, not with Daddy. Linda stood, no announcement, no grand flourish. Just rose from her seat, nodded once to the officer, and gathered her folder. Someone whispered as she walked past. She actually did it. No one followed her. No one stopped her. Down the hallway, the fluorescent lights flickered once, then steadied. She reached her desk, packed her things, just a mug, a notebook, a pen, and left behind a single sheet of paper. Typed, 12-point font. Centered. One sentence: compliance isn't optional. Neither is respect. She walked out to the parking lot, not bothering to look back. The storm she left behind wasn't loud. There were no explosions, no screaming matches, no public scenes. Just silence and ruin. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.